Hello and welcome to Land of Enchantment Living. I'm Maria. I've created a fall crafting marathon video to inspire your DIY projects and to help you prepare for the upcoming fall season. If you like Dollar Tree crafts, DIYs, or thrift flips, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. If you see a project that you really like, please make sure to give that project a big thumbs up. So let's go ahead and get started with this 2025 fall crafting marathon video. This first project is an antique vintage decorative apple butter jar. For this project, you will need a glass jar. I believe this one was an old spaghetti jar, some coffee filters, some decorative fabric. I will be using some Dollar Tree fabric along with some muslin fabric that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I will show you guys later on in the video how I use that. And you will also need some Mod Podge. I start by ironing my filters to get rid of the wrinkles, and then I cut them down to almost like a square shape. I'll apply my filters to the glass using some matte Mod Podge. I do apply 2 layers of filters. Once those 2 layers are dry, I seal them with some Mod Podge and let them dry completely before moving on to the next step. And I forgot to mention that I do cut out a circle and attach that to the bottom of the jar, giving the jar a nice clean finished look. And here is the jar completely dry and sealed with the 2 layers of coffee filters. Next, I'm going to take my Dollar Tree fabric, iron it out using my Cricut mini press. Then I will take a Dollar Tree lemon bowl, using it as a stencil to trace a circle on the fabric. Then I will cut the circle out. This circle will be used to cover the opening of the jar. To attach the fabric to the jar, I will be using some Mod Podge. I brush a good amount on the rim, then place my fabric on top and start smoothing the fabric down, creating little creases as I go, making sure I cover the coffee filter edges that are visible at the top of the jar because I do not want those to be visible. And then I will trim down the fabric just a little and then seal the fabric with some Mod Podge. This will stiffen up the fabric and it also gives it kind of like a shiny look. I will then set the jar aside to dry completely. And here is the apple butter label I will be using for the jar. I made this on Canva, printed it out on some muslin fabric, and I love how it turned out. Let me show you how I made it. Keep this next step in mind because I will be repeating this process in our next project. The first step is ironing out your fabric. Once you have your fabric ironed out, you'll take a piece of copy paper, the same paper you use to print any document out, and use it as a stencil to trace and cut out the piece of muslin fabric and a piece of the freezer paper. Now that the fabric and piece of freezer paper are cut down to size, and in order to run the fabric through your printer, it needs to be stiff and thicker. You'll take the freezer paper, place the fabric on the glossy side, and then iron it down. Now the fabric is ready to run through the printer. This weather Now that the image is printed on the fabric, I will seal it using a spray matte acrylic sealer so the ink doesn't smudge. I recommend doing this step outside because the fumes are pretty strong, at least I think so. I will then cut my fabric down to a size that will look good on the jar. And to give the label an aged look, I will rub on some distress ink in the color walnut, applying it all around the edges, then attach it to the jar, making sure it's centered using some Mod Podge.
Every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper. Would it make any difference? Would it change for the better? If I wrote you a poem, if I posted a letter. Is it maybe because I never knew?
And here you're going to see me remove the freezer paper from the back of the fabric.
Tell me, baby, you're lost, but I am too. Whatever the cost, we'll make it through. Tell me you're the one for me now.
And here's a look at how the jar is looking like so far. Next, I'll apply some coffee stain to the jar. I want to add the stain to the filters. I will not be applying any of the stain onto the fabric. This will give the jar an aged antique look. I will then set the jar aside to dry completely. This coffee stain is so easy to make. To make this stain, all you need is half a cup of instant coffee, 1 cup of warm water, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. I place everything in this mason jar, give it a good shake, and let it sit for about an hour before I use it. There's a lot of coffee stain recipes out there, and this is the one I went with, and I have been using it a lot lately. And I have to say, guys, this coffee stain smells really, really good.
You're the one for me now, 'cause what am I supposed to do? If you are not the one for me, then tell me now what I could do.
Now for the finishing touches. I will be using some raffia. I did rub some distress ink on in the color walnut to give it an aged look, some coffee stain lace from the Goodwill bins, and some reindeer moss. I did seal the moss with some of the spray sealer. I'll wrap the raffia around the top of the jar, making a simple tie without a bow, and repeat the process using the lace. I'll shorten the raffia down just a little, then trim down the moss, position it where I want it, and attach the moss using a little bit of hot glue.
Tell me you're the one for me now, 'cause what am I supposed to do? If you are not the one for me, then tell me now what I could do. Tell me you're the one for me now. I pray that you believe it too. That you're the only one for me, and I'm the only one for you.
I wanted to add a little color to the apple, and so I rubbed on a little bit of this red ink along with a hint of the distress ink in the color walnut. And for our final step, I will be taking my distress ink in the color walnut and rubbing it around the jar, avoiding the fabric label, bringing out all of the textures of the coffee filters.
Heard you want to leave this place where we grew up. This old town just put.
And here is the finished homemade apple butter jar. I love creating crafts that look antique and vintage looking, so I am loving how this little jar turned out. If you guys would like to make this jar at home, kind of making it your own, I will be leaving a free printable in my description box below of this image that I created on Canva. And if you guys do make a jar like this or any other craft, make sure to tag me on Instagram showing me all of your guys's beautiful crafts that you have made at home using this design.
Leave a mark in our marks to turn the memories. River's gonna cry when you're gone, gone, gone.
For our second project, I will be making an apple cider donut sack. For this project, you will need muslin fabric, some decorative fabric, and some pillow stuffing. I printed out the image on the muslin fabric and cut it down to the size I wanted. Remember the printing on fabric steps from our first project? I just repeated that whole process with this image, except I moved the image towards the bottom because we will be tying the top and I needed that extra fabric on the top so I didn't take away from this image. I'm taking this fabric from Dollar Tree and ironing it out with my Cricut mini press. Then taking my apple cider muslin fabric sheet, using it as a stencil, tracing around it, then cutting the fabric out.
Those trees, 12 years old, feel the wind and watch the river run.
And here you're going to see me remove the freezer paper from the back of the fabric. I will then place the two pieces of fabric with the right sides facing in and use my hot glue to attach them together, applying a little glue at a time all around the edges. I will leave the entire top open, flip the sack inside out, and then fill it with the pillow stuffing.
Gone, 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 gone. River's gonna cry when you're. River's gonna cry when you're. River's gonna cry when you're gone. It's gonna cry, it's gonna cry. River's gonna cry when you're gone. It's gonna cry, it's gonna cry.
Next, I will gather the fabric and using some twine, I'll wrap it around the top, closing the opening off by tying a really tight knot. Then I will age the fabric with the distress ink in the color walnut. And I have to say, guys, I think this has to be my most favorite color to use. To finish this little sack, I'm going to be tying some raffia to the top, making a little bow. And I did rub on some of the distress ink to the raffia, giving it an aged look. I will then trim the raffia down because I don't want the strands to be too long.
Appalachian sunrise meets my skin. Even with my eyes still closed, I can feel it coming in. Golden, golden, I'll follow only golden, 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 golden things. Mountain laurel high fives for miles in spring. Rainbow trout and hummingbird.
And here's our finished project. Now this little sack reads apple cider donut mix, premium quality since 1862. Bring the farm stand to your kitchen. And I am loving creating all of these antique looking crafts by simply printing out these images on fabric. I do have a few projects in mind for Thanksgiving, so I hope I'm able to share those with you guys soon. And I will also be leaving this design as a free printable in my description box below for you guys.
Golden, golden things.
This project is a decorative rolling pin. You will need a rolling pin. I got mine at the Goodwill bins. Some scrapbook paper. I got mine at Hobby Lobby with this beautiful pumpkin print, and some Mod Podge. I'll cut my scrapbook paper to the length I need. Next, I'll brush some Mod Podge onto the rolling pin, and attach it using the Mod Podge iron-on method. I really like this method because I think it prevents a lot of wrinkles. All you do is apply your Mod Podge to your surface, let it dry, then place your print over the dry Mod Podge and use your iron to secure it in place. Using your iron will heat up the Mod Podge, making it tacky enough so that your print sticks to the surface. Once the paper meets at both ends, I'll use my X-Acto knife to cut a straight line. I'll set the rolling pin aside to dry for about 30 minutes. To seal the rolling pin and finish this project off, I'll apply a top layer of gloss Mod Podge to the scrapbook paper. I'm using the gloss Mod Podge because I want the rolling pin to look like a ceramic rolling pin, and using the gloss Mod Podge will achieve this look.
Gold words, gold anything, golden. I follow only golden, golden, golden things, golden. I follow only golden, golden, golden.
Hey, darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5.
And here's our finished project. I love how this rolling pin turned out. I think it looks so cute. I cannot wait to decorate my kitchen with it. I have so many ideas on different vignettes that I want to create for my kitchen. Let me know what you think of this project in the comment box below.
Pack our bags and get in that car.
I will be sharing with you a fake bake apple pie recipe that actually looks and smells like a real apple pie using mostly all Dollar Tree items. For this project, you will need a cake pan, a car wash sponge, harvest apple fragrance oil. All of those items are from Dollar Tree. You will also need some yellow craft paint, ground cinnamon, coffee stain, distress ink, a little bit of water, a small paintbrush, and I also have some UV resin here that is completely optional, some air dry clay, and I will leave the recipe to the coffee stain in the description box below. Dollar Tree does carry small 1-ounce packages of air dry clay, but you get more for your money by purchasing a bigger tub at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, or Walmart.
When the stars are bright.
The first step to making this fake bake is making the apple pie filling. You're going to take your car wash sponge and remove the outer microfiber cloth because we only need the sponge. Next, I'm going to take a serrated knife, cut the sponge in half, then using my scissors, cut some strips, then cut some little squares. I used the entire sponge to fill this cake pan.
We can look back someday. Baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey. Come on now and take my hand. Ooh. Let's get out, we can leave this city.
Next, I'm going to transfer the cut sponge pieces into a plastic Dollar Tree bowl. I use this bowl specifically for crafting. With a glove on my hand, I'll add a little bit of yellow craft paint to my hand, then mix the sponge around, transferring that paint onto the sponge. This is going to add color to the sponge, making it look like real diced apples.
Necessary dwelling about the past, 'cause I know that God is good.
Next, I'll add the Harvest Apple Fragrance Oil to the sponge and give it a good mix. I'll then add a tiny bit of the coffee stain along with some ground cinnamon, and this is going to make this fake bake smell and look like a real homemade apple pie.
Sometimes you might need a helping hand, just like iron sharpens iron, making me stronger, calling me higher. When we come together
inside, making us stronger, calling us higher. When we're helping each other, we're growing together. It's so unnecessary worrying about life.
And here's a close-up of the apple pie filling. Doesn't it look like real apples? And it smells so good. Moving on to making the pie crust. You want to start by taking a good amount of clay and kneading it as if it were real dough, making it a little more pliable. Then you want to start rolling it out into a long log shape, long enough to go around the entire rim of the cake pan.
Just like I am, sharpens iron, making me stronger, calling me higher.
Once the log is long enough, you'll place it all around the rim. Because we want the pie to look as realistic as possible, we cannot have any of the inside of the pan showing. Taking my thumb, I'm going to press and smooth the clay at least halfway down onto the pan. When using air-dry clay, you will notice some fingerprints. To remove them, all you do is take a paintbrush with a little bit of water, brush the water onto the clay, and use your fingers to smooth out the fingerprints. Now it's time to flute our clay, making this crust look realistic. Because my nails were a little long, I couldn't use my fingers to flute the clay, and so I had to use my knuckles to pinch and press the clay all around. If you notice that your clay is starting to crack, just add a little bit of water to the clay itself and to your fingers, and don't worry about all of those fingerprints because we are going to add a little bit of water in a while to the clay and use our fingers to smooth all of those prints out.
I know you're hurt, I can see it in your
And here is our pie crust. We have it all fluted. I am just taking a little bit of water on the paintbrush, running my fingers all around, smoothing those fingerprints out. And I have to tell you guys, working with clay could get a little messy. Once I am done smoothing all of my fingerprints out, I'm going to go ahead and clean the bottom of this pan up.
Just hold on to me, yeah. I'm your lighthouse, I'm the sun against your dark clouds. I will.
Before we add our apple pie filling into our pan, I am going to add a little bit of Mod Podge to the sponge. Give it a good mix. This is going to keep all of these apple pieces together, and then I'm going to go ahead and transfer this into our pie pan and let the clay dry for 2 hours.
Just believe it. Yeah, it's getting cold, waves are crashing in. When the streams are getting strong, just
And now it's time to get started on our lattice top. I went ahead and rolled out some clay. I rolled it out between 2 sheets of wax paper because I didn't want the clay sticking to my work surface. You want to make sure the clay is rolled out large enough to where the strips are long enough to cover the pie. I use a pizza cutter and a ruler as my guide to cut my strips. And here you're going to see me start placing my strips over the pie. But I thought these strips were way too thick, so I took them off, cut them a little thinner, then placed them back.
I'll be your guiding light. I know that it's getting cold, the waves are crashing in. When the streams are getting strong, just hold on
So I'm going to make this fake bake a little fancy, so I'll take a thinner strip of clay, cut it down the middle, then braid those two strips together. Now it's time to weave the clay. Fold every other strip of clay back, then place the braided strip down, then fold the pieces of clay back over the braided strip, and you want to repeat this process until you have the entire pie weaved.
This is a
To attach the strips of clay to the fluted crust, you want to fold the ends in, add a little bit of water to the clay, press the strips down along the edges. If you have too much clay hanging over the pie, simply use a knife to trim it down before attaching it to the fluted crust.
the sun on my skin, beginning to thaw from within. Today and not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Today is a good day to live. This morning has so clear a light as any to see the horizon in the far. Excuses were too.
And here's a look at our apple pie now that we have the lattice top attached to the fluted crust. Don't you guys think this looks like a real apple pie? Now that we have this step done, it's time to set the pie aside to dry for 24 hours. And here we are 24 hours later, and it's time to add the finishing touches to the apple pie. And I have to say, guys, this pie is still very fragrant. It smells so good. I'll take some of my coffee stain and brush this stain all over the clay, making sure to get every surface of this clay. Make sure to take your time with this step because you do not want to miss any part of the clay, because it is a little noticeable when you miss even the slightest little part.
Borrow, there's no time to borrow. Today, well, something's gotta give. Today is a good day to live.
And now that the clay has been painted with the coffee stain, I'll set the pie aside to dry for about an hour, and then I will come back and apply some distress ink in the color walnut, focusing on the edges, giving the clay a golden brown baked look, giving this pie a realistic baked apple pie crust. And I completely forgot to mention that I do give the clay 2 coats of the coffee stain. Okay guys, so this next step is completely optional. I've had some UV resin in my crafting stash for quite a while now, and so I'm going to apply some of the UV resin to the sponge, giving the apples a shiny, gooey look like this pie just came right out of the oven. Once I've added the resin, I'll cure it with my UV light.
There's no time to borrow. Today, well, something's gotta give. Today is a good day. Today is a good day. Today is a good day to live.
To add a little more fragrance and shine to the pie, I'm taking the Apple Harvest fragrance oil from Dollar Tree and apply it to the crust using a little paintbrush. And here is our finished fake bake apple pie. I had so much fun making this project. Adding the UV resin made the sponge look gooey, made it look so realistic. I really hope that you guys are able to see the gooiness of that UV resin. Here I have it paired with my fall DIY apple crafts. If you guys missed that video, I will leave it linked in the description box below. Let me know what you guys think of this fake bake in the comment box below. I will be making some wall art using mostly all Dollar Tree items. I will be using this Dollar Tree wooden frame and a print from a Dollar Tree calendar I picked up last year. I start by staining the wooden frame with some Waverly Wax in Antique, and then I'll set that aside to dry.
You've got me questioning my position. Am I just filling out?
Next, I'll cut my print out to fit inside the frame and attach it using the Mod Podge iron-on method. I really like this method because I think it prevents a lot of wrinkles. All you do is apply your Mod Podge to your surface, let it dry, then place your print over the dry Mod Podge and use your iron to secure it in place. Using your iron will heat up the Mod Podge, making it tacky enough so that your print sticks to the surface. I do cover my image with some parchment paper, that way none of the ink from the image transfers onto my Cricut heat press.
It's up to you to choose. Replica or no, my game is as strong. Flowers at the market.
To finish this project, I'll seal the print with a layer of gloss Mod Podge, applying it in an X motion, giving this project a painted canvas look.
We all work hard to be our best. Replica or no.
And here's our finished Happy Harvest wall art project. I love how this turned out. It was super fast and easy to make. I am thinking of using this above my fireplace mantle or maybe my kitchen. Let me know what you think of this project in the comment box below.
Not hers, not mine, or even his. We are.
For this project, you will need a glass jar. I believe this one was an old spaghetti jar, some coffee filters, some decorative fabric. I got mine at Hobby Lobby. This is a 1/4 yard and I picked it up for about $1.19 and some Mod Podge. I start by ironing my filters to get rid of the wrinkles, and then I cut them down to almost like a square shape. I'll apply my filters to the glass using some matte Mod Podge. I do apply 2 layers of filters. Once those 2 layers are dry, I seal them with some Mod Podge and let them dry completely before moving on to the next step. And I forgot to mention that I do cut out a circle and attach that to the bottom of the jar, giving the jar a nice clean finished look.
Work hard, be our best.
And here's a little crafting tip for you guys. If you guys are crafting and you are using a lot of Mod Podge for different projects, I always wrap my brush up in some cling wrap. That way it doesn't dry up on me. I printed and cut out a pumpkin stencil, and then I'll place it on the fabric, trace around it, and then cut the pumpkin out. I'll dab some distress ink in the color walnut to give the pumpkin a vintage distress look, and then I'll attach it to the jar using some Mod Podge.
You look at me like I'm crazy when I shut my feelings out. You look at me like I'm different. Still you stay cause you feel something real. Get so lost.
Next, I'll apply a coat of a coffee stain to the dried coffee filters, giving the jar a vintage look. This coffee stain is so easy to make. To make this stain, all you need is half a cup of instant coffee, 1 cup of warm water, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. I place everything in this mason jar, give it a good shake, and let it sit for about an hour before I use it. There's a lot of coffee stain recipes out there, and this is the one I went with, and I have been using it a lot lately. I'll set the jar aside for about 10 minutes before moving on to the next step. I found this old piece of lace at the Goodwill bins, and I knew I could use it for some DIY projects. I'll cut a strip out and stain it using the coffee stain and set it aside to dry. And I probably should have done this step before starting this project, but I kind of waited till the last minute to do it. And now it's time to add the finishing touches to the jar. I went ahead and cut a square out using the same fabric we used for the pumpkin. I'll use it to cover the opening of the jar. I do fringe the edges out on the piece of fabric, and I also use the distress ink in the color walnut to give it an aged look. I'll place my twinkle lights inside the jar and leave the battery pack on the outside of the jar. That way I'm able to turn it on and off whenever I want. I'll place the fabric on top, and then I will tie it down using the lace. I do a simple tie without making a bow, and I'll repeat the same steps using some raffia and a piece of pipberry garland I picked up at Dollar Tree a few years back. If you don't have any lace, raffia, or pipberries, you can cut out some strips of fabric, use the coffee stain to give them a vintage worn look, and use those strips to tie and secure the fabric down, and it'll look just as cute.
They never know where we will fall. Nobody can see it. Still they wanna tear us apart. There's something different about the way we are. There's something different about us. There's something different about us. There's something different about the way we are.
I felt like my pumpkin was missing something, and so I cut out a leaf shape from a piece of the leftover coffee filter. I painted the leaf using some sage colored craft paint and distressed it with the distress ink in the color walnut, then attached it using some Mod Podge. To finish the leaf off, I stained it using the coffee stain.
I'm staring at you, you don't even notice. Should've told you straight away.
And here is our finished pumpkin twinkle light jar. I love this little jar. I think it came out so cute. I love the effect that coffee stain gave this jar. It looks rustic and vintage. I'm thinking of using this in my coffee bar area. Let me know what you guys think of this little project in the comment box below.
Let you go, put your arms around me, and I'll let you know how it feels.
We will be making a super cute pumpkin seed sack. I will be using my home printer for this project to print out an image on a piece of fabric. For this project, you will need some fabric. I'll be using a piece of muslin fabric I got at Hobby Lobby, a piece of Dollar Tree fabric, freezer paper, pillow stuffing, and of course your printer. The first step to this project is ironing out your fabric. Once you have your fabric ironed out, you'll take a piece of copy paper, the same paper you use to print any document out, and use it as a stencil to trace and cut out the piece of muslin fabric and a piece of the freezer paper.
Everything I have to say, but I'm afraid, and I know you haven't noticed.
Now that the fabric and piece of freezer paper are cut down to size, and in order to run the fabric through your printer, it needs to be stiff and thicker. You'll take the freezer paper, place the fabric on the glossy side, and then iron it down. Now the fabric is ready to run through the printer. The image I'll be using, I created myself using Canva, and I thought it turned out so cute. And here's the fabric with the image printed on. I did print out 2 different images on this piece of fabric. I'll be using the other image for a later project. You will need to seal the ink so it doesn't smudge. For this, I used a spray sealer. I recommend doing this step outside. Once the sealer is dry, I'll be distressing the fabric using some distressed ink in the color walnut. And here you're going to see me remove the freezer paper from the back of the fabric. Next, I'll place the 2 fabric pieces with the outsides facing in and apply some hot glue all the way around to attach both of the pieces of fabric together. I apply a small amount of glue at a time so it doesn't set up on me, and I do leave a small opening at the bottom.
Down on your knees, come to the mountain while taking in the view. You will find that life is greater than you knew. When you go through the storm, I will hold you, keep you warm. When you stay in the night, I will shelter, I will fight, I will fight. Oh. You're broken and you're shattered.
And now that the glue is dry, I'll flip the sack inside out and I'll start filling the sack up with some pillow stuffing. Once it's full, I'll seal the bottom opening with some hot glue, making sure to fold in the fabric, giving the sack a clean, finished look.
With the breeze, take a step into the river, where you will find peace. When you go through the storm, I will hold you, keep you warm. When you
To finish up this project, I'll apply some distress ink in the color walnut, making sure to get all of the corners and edges.
I will fly.
And here is our finished pumpkin seed sack project. I love how this turned out. I think it might be my most favorite project from this video. It was super easy to make, guys. Do not be timid about making this project. I love the design that I created on Canva. I do have a few other designs made up for some more upcoming fall crafts. Let me know what you guys think of this project in the comment box below.
So come to the water, where you will find peace.
We'll be making some fabric apples. I've had these fake apples for sale at my vendor booth for quite some time, and they haven't sold, so I thought I would bring them home and give them a little makeover. For this project, you will need some fake apples, some decorative fabric. I got this fabric at Hobby Lobby. It was on clearance for $2 a yard, and I only got half a yard, so I only paid $1, which I think was a really, really good deal. Some sticks, I got mine from my pine trees outside, some green felt fabric, and some hot glue.
And what you think, and I know it's hard. Yeah, I know it's rough.
I start by removing the stems from all the apples and then taking my X-Acto knife and making the holes on the top of the apples a little larger in order to stuff some of the fabric into that opening.
Wherever you're going,
ahead and cut my fabric into some squares. I'll add some hot glue to the bottom of the apple, then place it down onto the fabric and smooth the fabric out to get a good hold. Next, I'll grab a corner of the fabric, fold it in just a little, then bring the fabric up and over the apple and stuffing the fabric into the hole, securing the fabric in place with some hot glue. I'll repeat this step until I have all the fabric wrapped around the entire apple. If you see that you have a little too much fabric, trim the excess off, then stuff it into the hole, securing the fabric in place with some hot glue.
I wish you could see that. I think you're brave. And if it all falls, if it all breaks, I'll still be here. We'll fix these mistakes. Wherever you're going, I'm going to.
Now it's time to attach the stems. I'm going to take the sticks, cut them down to a shorter length, then simply hot glue them to the hole on top of the apple. I'll be using the thinner sticks for the smaller apples and the thicker sticks for the larger ones.
Life and to death.
To make some leaves, I freehanded a leaf shape on some green felt fabric, cut them out, adding a tiny bit of hot glue to one end of the leaf, creating a little fold, then attaching the leaves to the apple stems using some hot glue.
Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next.
And the final step to this project is rubbing some Distress ink in the color walnut to the leaves.
I'm with you through life and to death.
And here's our finished fabric apples. I think they turned out so cute, and I think all of these crafts that I've created so far pair nicely together. You guys can make some beautiful rustic looking vintage style vignettes in your kitchens using these crafts. Let me know what you guys think of this project in the comment box below.
It goes round and round in circles, but I'm still on the ground. It's a dizzying day.
Final project, I will be making what I call an autumn apple orchard wreath. For this project, you will need a grapevine wreath. I got mine at the Goodwill bins. Some greenery picks. I got all of mine at the Dollar Tree. Some pine cones, also from the Goodwill bins. And of course, some apples. I will be using some dried apples that I made using my dehydrator for this project. You will also need some wire to attach the greenery and some hot glue. And here's a shot of the apples after I had them sliced and ready for the dehydrator. I start by cutting my picks with my wire cutters. To attach them, I will be sticking the ends into the wreath, then securing them down with the wire. I start with the larger greenery picks as my fillers, then moving on to the smaller ones. I really wanted this wreath to look very earthy and rustic, so I tried picking colors that were a little darker with hints of reds and browns. And here I am attaching the picks to the wreath using the wire, and I found that this process was taking way too long, so I decided to go ahead and switch this up by using my hot glue to attach all the picks. I was a little worried about using hot glue because I thought it would be visible, but I did a pretty good job at hiding it. Once I have my greenery fillers in place, I'll hot glue my pine cones and apples down. You want to be super careful with the dried apples because you don't want them cracking on you. Now I was thinking of adding a bow to the wreath, but I thought it would take away from the earthy, organic, rustic look I was going for. I finished this wreath off by adding the little red flowers all around.
Come again tomorrow. There's a new day to wash away the pain. There's a new day to take away your sorrow, and the old ways get washed out by the rain. Darling, you've got to keep.
And here's our finished project. I have to say, guys, this has to be my most favorite project from this entire video, and I really think it turned out way better than I expected. Let me know what you guys think of this project in the comment box below.
Try to get some sleep if you give.
I would like to thank you for taking the time to watch my fall crafting marathon video. I hope you enjoyed all of these fall crafts, and if you had a favorite, please let me know which one was yours in the comment box below. I love chatting with all of you.
To leave behind your troubles. There's a new day, and it will set you free. There's a new day to get you through your struggles. I will always think of you and me.
If you like the video that you just watched and would like some more crafting or home decorating inspiration, here's some other videos that you might like. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time in the next video. Bye!